I watched my husband pull into our driveway with her in the passenger seat. He didn't know I'd been planning for this moment for 3 weeks. He thought I was the perfect, quiet wife. But tonight, he'd learn what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, this story is for you. Hit that like button, because what happens next, you won't believe. And subscribe, trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. My name is Solange, and 3 weeks ago, my entire world shattered over a plate of pasta. I know that sounds ridiculous, but let me explain. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 5 years building what I thought was the perfect life. I'm an interior designer, the kind who gets flown to Milan for fabric selections and has a waiting list of clients who'll pay anything to have me transform their spaces. But the space I was most proud of, the one I poured my soul into, that was our home, mine and Bennett's. Bennett, my husband, 38, brilliant, charming, and a self-made tech CEO. At least, that's what everyone thinks. Self-made, that's almost funny now, considering it was my family's money that gave him his first real investment. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 3 weeks ago, I finished a client meeting early. I was exhausted, craving comfort food, so I stopped at that little Italian place on Fifth Avenue, the one with the dim lighting and the wine list that could make you weep. I walked in, and there he was, Bennett, in a corner booth, with her. And they weren't just sitting together like colleagues. His hand was on her face, her fingers were tangled in his hair. They were kissing like the world was ending, and they were the only 2 people who could save each other. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it across the restaurant. The hostess asked if I needed a table. I heard myself say, "No, thank you," my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. I walked out, got in my car, drove home, and I didn't cry, not one tear, because something else was happening inside me, something colder, something sharper. I started noticing things I'd been too trusting to see before, the late nights he blamed on investor meetings, the new cologne that wasn't the one I bought him for his birthday, that sickly sweet perfume that clung to his suits, nothing like the subtle jasmine I wore. And then I did what any woman with a brain and a breaking heart does. I started digging. Bank statements, phone records, emails he thought he'd deleted but hadn't, not really. Bennett's always been brilliant with code, but terrible with covering his tracks at home. Maybe he thought I was too in love to look, too dependent to question, too quiet to care. What I found made my blood run cold. 8 months. They'd been together for 8 months. Her name was Rain, 28, and according to her LinkedIn, his new business partner. How convenient. How perfectly, disgustingly convenient. But I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or throw things or demand answers. Instead, I smiled at breakfast. I asked about his day. I played the role he expected me to play. And while I played it, I planned. Because I learned something important in those 3 weeks. Revenge isn't a dish best served hot. It's best served cold, calculated, and so perfectly timed that they never see it coming. And tonight, watching him walk her into my home, introducing her like I'm supposed to welcome his mistress with open arms, tonight the curtain finally rises. The front door opens, and I hear his voice before I see him, that smooth, confident tone that used to make my stomach flutter. Now it just makes me nauseous. I'm in the kitchen, arranging wine glasses on the counter, my hands perfectly steady. I've practiced this moment in my head 100 times. "Solange, honey, we're home." Bennett calls, like this is normal, like he's bringing home a colleague, not the woman he's been sleeping with for 8 months. I take a breath, paste on my smile, and turn around just as they walk into the kitchen. She's beautiful. I hate that I notice, but I do. Rain stands there in a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, her hair perfect, her smile friendly, but with just a hint of smugness around the edges. She knows exactly who I am. I can see it in her eyes. Solange, this is Rain, Bennett says, his hand casually resting on the small of her back. My back. That's where his hand used to rest. She's my new business partner. She'll be staying in the guest room for a few days while we work on the new product launch. I let the smile widen. Of course, welcome to our home, Rain. Our home. I emphasize it just slightly, watching her reaction. She doesn't flinch. Bold, I'll give her that. Thank you so much for having me, she says, her voice syrupy sweet. Bennett has told me so much about this place. It's absolutely stunning. Bennett's home is beautiful, isn't it? She adds, looking around the kitchen I designed, the backsplash I spent weeks selecting, the island I had custom made from reclaimed wood. Bennett's home, not ours, not mine, his. I feel my jaw tighten, but I keep smiling. I'm glad you like it. I designed it, every inch of it myself. Interior design is my passion. I let that hang in the air for just a moment before turning to Bennett. Why don't you show Rain to the guest room? I'll finish preparing dinner. As they walk away, I hear her laugh at something he whispers, that high, tinkling laugh that's probably practiced in mirrors. My fingers curl around the stem of a wine glass, and for a split second, I imagined throwing it against the wall. Instead, I pour myself a generous glass of Cabernet and take a long sip. Dinner is a performance, and I deserve an Oscar. I serve Bennett's favorite, the short ribs I used to make for our anniversaries, the ones that take hours to prepare. I watch them sit across from each other at my dining table, their feet probably touching underneath, and I smile and nod and play the gracious hostess. When Rain compliments the food, I thank her. When Bennett talks about their business plans, our business plans, really, since it was my family's $200,000 that got his company off the ground, I listen attentively. Under the table, my fingernails dig into my palms so hard I'm sure I'm drawing blood. But above the table, I'm perfect, poised, the ideal wife. You know, Solange, Rain says, reaching for her wine, Bennett is so lucky to have someone who supports his work like you do. Not every woman would be so understanding about the long hours and the travel. The travel. Oh, I know about the travel. The investor conference in Miami that was really a weekend at the Ritz with her, the tech summit in Austin where they shared a suite. My lawyer already has the credit card statements. Well, I say, my voice honey smooth, marriage is about trust, isn't it? Believing your partner is exactly where they say they are, doing exactly what they say they're doing. Bennett shifts in his seat. Good, let him squirm. After dinner, I excuse myself, claiming I have client emails to catch up on. Really, I just can't stomach watching them anymore. I stand in the hallway, in the dark, and I hear them in the living room, laughing. His laugh, the one that used to be mine. Her voice, low and intimate. I head upstairs to our bedroom, the one we've shared for 5 years, and I don't cry. Instead, I open my laptop and review everything one more time. The documents, the evidence, the plan. Tomorrow, everything changes. Day 2. I wake up to the sound of them making breakfast together in my kitchen. Her laugh echoes up the stairs, and I close my eyes, breathing through the pain that still manages to catch me off guard. But pain is useful. Pain reminds me why I'm doing this. I take my time getting ready, applying my makeup with precision, choosing a cream silk blouse that makes me look powerful. When I finally go downstairs, they're sitting at the island, shoulders touching, sharing a bowl of fruit like they're already playing house. Good morning, I say brightly, pouring myself coffee. Bennett barely looks up from his phone. That used to bother me. Now I'm grateful for every dismissal, every small cruelty. It makes what's coming easier. The morning passes in a blur of fake pleasantries. I work in my home office, or at least I pretend to. Really, I'm waiting. Around 2 in the afternoon, I decide to make tea. I walk past the living room, and that's when I see it. Bennett's laptop open on the coffee table. He's in the shower. I can hear the water running upstairs. Rain is out by the pool, sunbathing in a bikini that costs more than my first car. I shouldn't look, but I do. And there they are, messages, hundreds of them, 8 months' worth of late-night confessions and stolen moments, and plans for a future that doesn't include me. My hands start shaking as I scroll. There's one from 6 months ago that makes my stomach turn. Rain asking when he's going to handle the wife situation. Bennett responding that he needs to wait until after his company goes public, until he secures my family's continued investment, until he can afford to let me go. Let me go, like I'm an employee, like our marriage is a contract he's waiting to terminate. I find another message, more recent, just last week. Bennett telling Rain that once the divorce is final, they'll take a month in Bali, use the money from the settlement to really live. My money, my family's money. The water stops running upstairs. I close the laptop carefully, my heart hammering, and I walk back to my office. I sit down, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself feel it. All of it. The rage, the humiliation, the soul-crushing betrayal. My breathing gets faster, my vision blurs, and I realize I'm crying. Not delicate tears, ugly, gasping sobs that I muffle with my hand. But then I stop, I wipe my face, I stand up, because tonight is the night. I'm done waiting. Dinner. I make reservations at the house, set the table with our wedding china, light candles. When Bennett sees it, he looks confused. What's the occasion? No occasion, just thought we should have a nice evening together, all of us. Rain looks uncomfortable for the first time since she arrived. Good. I serve the meal I prepared, pour expensive wine from the bottle Bennett's been saving for a special celebration. We eat in tense silence until Bennett clears his throat. Actually, Solange, I've been meaning to talk to you lately, he says, setting down his fork. His voice has that careful, rehearsed quality. He's really going to do this, right now, in front of her. Something inside me snaps. I stand up so fast my chair scrapes against the floor. Bennett looks startled. Rain's eyes go wide, and I feel this rush of power, this absolute clarity. You mean the marriage you've been cheating on for 8 months, Bennett? The words come out calm, deadly calm. Bennett's face goes pale. The wine glass trembles in his hand. The marriage you've been planning to end the moment your company goes public? The one you've been bleeding dry while you plan your future with her? I pick up my wine glass and throw the contents directly in his face. Red wine drips down his shocked expression, staining his white shirt. Solange, what the... He starts, standing up. Sit down. Bennett doesn't sit. He stands there, wine dripping from his chin, his face twisted in anger and shock. Rain has pushed her chair back from the table, her eyes darting between us like she's watching a car crash. How dare you, Bennett starts, his voice rising. How dare I laugh, and it's not a nice sound. How dare you? You brought your mistress into my home. You sat at my table, you ate my food, and you had the audacity to try to divorce me like I'm some kind of obstacle you need to remove. Rain stands up, her hands raised like she's trying to calm a wild animal. Solange, maybe we should just all take a breath, and I turn on her, and whatever she sees in my face makes her step back. You don't get to talk. You don't get to say one single word in my house. You knew he was married. You knew, and you did it anyway. You thought you were special, thought you were different. I move closer to her, and she backs up until she hits the wall. You're not the first, Rain. You're just the first stupid enough to think she'd actually get to keep him. My hand moves before I even realize what I'm doing. The slap echoes through the dining room, sharp and satisfying. Rain's hand flies to her cheek, her eyes filling with tears. That's for sleeping with my husband in my house, in the bed I picked out, on the sheets I bought. Bennett grabs my arm, his fingers digging in. That's enough, Solange. I wrench away from him, and when I speak, my voice drops to something cold and dangerous. Don't you ever put your hands on me again. You lost that right the first time you touched her. He lets go, and I can see it now, the fear starting to creep into his eyes, the realization that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't know me as well as he thought. I walk back to the table, take a sip of my wine, and smile. It's the smile that scares him most, I can tell, the calm one, the one that says I'm in complete control. You want to know what I've been doing for the past 3 weeks, Bennett, while you've been planning your exit strategy and your romantic Bali getaway? I pull out my phone, open the folder I've labeled Evidence, and start scrolling. Let's see. First, I contacted my family's lawyers. You remember my family, right? The ones who gave you $200,000 5 years ago to start your precious company. Turns out that money came from my trust fund, and according to the original agreement, which you apparently didn't read carefully enough, it's still legally tied to me, not you, me. Bennett's face goes from red to white. You can't. Oh, but I can. I already did. Second, I've spent 3 weeks documenting everything. Every late-night text message, every hotel receipt, every lie you told me about investor meetings and business trips. I have timestamps, Bennett, photographs, financial records showing you've been funneling our money into a separate account, the account you were going to use to start your new life with her. I set my phone down and meet his eyes. Third, I filed for divorce. The papers will be served to you tomorrow morning at your office. Very public, very official. Your assistant will probably cry. She always liked me. Rain is crying now, mascara running down her face. Bennett, you said you were already separated. You said... He lied, I say simply. He's very good at that. But I'm not done, not even close. Fourth, and this is my personal favorite, I contacted your board of directors. You know, the ones who are taking the company public next month. I sent them a very detailed email about your affair, complete with evidence of how you've been misusing company resources. The private jet to Miami, the hotel suites charged to the corporate card. They're very interested in discussing this with you. Bennett's phone starts ringing. He looks down at it and I can see his hand shake. That's probably them now, I say. Bennett doesn't answer the phone. He just stares at it, watching it ring and ring until it finally stops. Then it starts again immediately. His face has gone completely gray. Solange, he says, and his voice cracks, actually cracks. Please, we can fix this. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I know I did, but you can't destroy everything we've built. Everything we've built. The words would be funny if they weren't so pathetic. We didn't build anything, Bennett. I built you. I gave my family's money when no investor would touch your idea. I gave up the New York office opportunity because you needed me here for support. I designed this house, managed our life, played the perfect wife at every corporate dinner and charity gala while you were building your empire on my foundation. Rain is trying to edge towards the door, but I'm not letting her off that easy. Where do you think you're going? Stay. Watch this. You wanted him so badly, you should see what you're actually getting. Bennett's phone rings again. This time he answers. Yes, I understand. Tomorrow morning. I'll be there. He hangs up, and when he looks at me, there's something broken in his eyes. They want an emergency board meeting. They're talking about removing me as CEO. Good, I say simply. Solange, please. He's begging now, actually begging. Think about what you're doing. If they remove me, if the IPO falls through, we both lose everything. I laugh, and it's genuine this time. No, Bennett, you lose everything. I already secured my assets. 5th move, by the way. I froze the joint accounts 3 days ago and moved my money into a separate trust. every penny I brought into this marriage, every dollar I earned from my business, it's all protected. Your lawyer will explain it to you tomorrow when you get served. I walk to the hallway and pick up the bag I packed this morning, the one that's been sitting by the door, waiting. I'm leaving now. This house, the one I designed and you just lived in, my lawyer will be in touch about that too. Turns out when someone uses marital funds to conduct an affair, uses the family home to entertain their mistress, the courts tend to look favorably on the betrayed spouse. Rain finally finds her voice. This is insane. You're insane. Bennett, we should call... Shut up, Rain. It's Bennett who says it, not me. He's still staring at his phone, watching the emails pour in. I can see them from here. Subject lines about fiduciary responsibility, emergency meetings, immediate action required. I stop at the door and turn back one last time. Bennett is slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. Rain is standing awkwardly by the table, finally realizing she's backed the wrong horse. They both look small suddenly, insignificant. You know what the saddest part is? I say quietly. I really loved you, Bennett. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was be faithful. All you had to do was respect me. But you couldn't even do that. 6 months later, I'm standing in my home office, the morning sun streaming through the windows I had installed last month during the renovation. This house is mine now, officially. The divorce settlement gave me the house, 60% of the marital assets, and every penny of my family's original investment returned with interest. Bennett's company did go public eventually, but without him. The board forced him to step down after the scandal broke. He got a small payout, enough to live on, but nothing like the millions he'd been planning. Last I heard, he's renting a one-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, trying to rebuild his reputation. Rain left him 2 weeks after his money troubles started. Apparently, love wasn't enough when the luxury dried up. My design business is thriving. I get messages sometimes, from Bennett. Apologies, excuses, promises that things would be different if I just give him another chance. I delete them without reading. Some things, once broken, aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to teach you who you really are. I used to think love meant sacrifice, meant making yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger, meant swallowing your hurt and your anger and your self-respect, because that's what good wives do. But I was wrong. Love shouldn't cost you your dignity. It shouldn't require you to ignore your worth, and it should never, ever make you feel invisible in your own life. The truth is, they thought my silence was permission. They mistook my grace for weakness. They assumed that because I didn't scream and throw things the moment I found out, I must not have cared. But the strongest thing I ever did was choose myself. The bravest thing I ever did was walk away from someone who didn't deserve me. I look at myself in the mirror now, and I see someone I'm proud of, someone who stood up, someone who refused to be disrespected in her own home, someone who understood that revenge isn't about being cruel, it's about reclaiming what was always yours, your power, your peace, your future. So if you're watching this and you're in a situation where someone is taking you for granted, where you're being lied to, cheated on, made to feel like you're the problem, let me tell you something. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to beg to be valued. And you never, ever need to stay where you're disrespected. Your peace is worth more than their apologies. Your future is worth more than their promises to change. They'll tell you you're overreacting, that you're being dramatic, that you should forgive and forget because that's what love is. But real love doesn't ask you to forget yourself. Real love doesn't require you to accept betrayal with a smile. Know your worth, protect your peace, and never be afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve the life you deserve. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe, because I've got more stories of people who chose themselves over settling. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done? Would you have waited and planned like I did, or would you have confronted them immediately? I want to hear your thoughts. Remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. And the best revenge? It's not about hurting them back. It's about building a life so beautiful, so successful, so full of peace that they realize exactly what they lost. I'll see you in the next one.